Well, the boys leaned more into its wokeness. And again, I don't think it would be out of line to say the show has always had something to say politically, in particular with Homelander. I think the show's creator and writing team got really mad that people started to view Homelander as the good guy when he was supposed to be the bad guy. That's why they've done all these humiliation rituals with him and having all these insane storylines. But the boys has always been quote unquote woke. But now, season 4, it's gone completely unhinged. And that's really not that uncommon. When shows run out of ideas, they just kind of lean back into their politics because it's the only thing that they know. And now they've managed to offend the left and the right in their latest episode. And the media is not having it. And you know what? I 100% support this. By the way, this video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. Check this out. Shout out to this video's sponsor, Private Internet Access. Look, it's 2024. If you aren't using a VPN yet, you're completely missing out. And Private Internet Access is the one I use on all of my devices. If you've been following the news, you see that censorship, websites, apps are getting shut down in certain countries, all sorts of craziness. Well, a VPN helps you never have to worry about that. Private Internet Access also protects you from the prying eyes of hackers, internet service providers, and others that can view your personal data. Perhaps also just as importantly, Private Internet Access allows you to access region-restricted content from all over the world. Streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and more have different library options based on where you're located, and some shows simply cannot be accessed if you're not in the target location. Happens to me all the time. Many sports events also have regional blackouts. Well, VPNs can be a convenient way to make sure you're getting the content that you're paying for. Private Internet Access also allows you to protect an unlimited amount of devices all at the same time, so your entire household with a single subscription. And I've been working with Private Internet Access so long that I have an absolutely massive discount available to my viewers. Link in the description below. Get Private Internet Access today using my link. Save huge, protect your computers, access all the content that you've been paying for, and ensure that your internet is never censored. Now, this latest episode of The Boys has got a lot of criticism, especially in the way that it handles men who are, having bad things happen to them. If it were a woman, it would be terrible. If it's a man, ha ha ha, it's funny. You see Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers tweeting out to 10,000 likes. The new Boys episode is effing weird. Dude is getting legit, essayed for half of the runtime, and it's just so weird to watch. According to the writers, they thought it was just hilarious that this guy was having terrible things happen to him. Well, that's a dark way to look at it. We view it as hilarious. This, of course, leans into the insane double standard that, men can't be victims of this kind of thing. And, you should look into, anyway, let's stick to the story. Now the media is pushing back. And I have to say, I give credit to Eric Kane and even Paul Tassi. You put here, Paul Tassi, who definitely is a leftist. The Boys is putting shock value over story, and it's going very poorly. Season 4 of The Boys is nearly over, and things have begun to go off the rails. Not in a fun, wacky way we usually see from the show, but in a way that's just unpleasant and bad. The content warning follows. This week's episode, Dirty Business, has a group infiltrating the, quote, an alt-right meetup, where a coup of the government is plotted. Obviously, we see the parallels because these people can't keep it out. They're just trying to do the J6 thing, all that kind of stuff. Led by Homelander and Victoria Newman. And this evening, we get two of the worst aspects of this season. It's ham-fisted political commentary as Republican quotes almost verbatim Todd Akin's famous, quote, legitimate stuff declaration. And also The Boys trying to outdo itself, not by better storylines, but character moments by just being gross, but in a way that doesn't work at all. It feels like this episode was trying to ape the infamous hero-gasm about a superhero hookup that led to a major showdown between the characters. That doesn't happen here, and a large chunk of the evening is mainly devoted to Huey being tortured by Tech Knight and Ashley, even if it's largely things like feet tickling and stuff like that. Other bad stuff, I can't even write it here. It's still SA. And the show at least pauses to take a breath to let Huey break down afterwards. Still, it wasn't funny to watch or whatever it was supposed to be. The more I watch the current iteration of The Boys, the more I realize how much better Gen 5's first season was by comparison. That show has plenty of stuff, but it's not the main, plenty of spicy stuff, but it's not the main focus. It also has a coherent storyline and characters you want to root for. If The Boys ever had that, it's now turned them into a beat-down Huey and a powerless Starlight. Now the show is trying to give A-Train some sort of redemption arc. Given the nature of the show, it seems like they'll be setting up to be killed thereafter. This has not been an enjoyable season. The politics have just gotten dumb, way too one-to-one paralleled with real life in a way that isn't even clever. Even if I actually agree with those politics. I mean, even the left that they're pandering to. Okay, the very people that they're pandering to have said, I'm good. We get it. Orange man bad. Even the woke left has had enough orange man bad, which is hard to believe. It's hard to believe that they've had enough orange man bad, because they never have enough orange man bad. And I deserve to have viewers talking about the new sick thing that the show did next to overwhelming all the plot development, blah, 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 blah. So here's a leftist position, doesn't like it. Here's Eric Kane, who's probably more left-leaning, I would say, in general, but he generally will acknowledge, when stuff is SJW stuff. He's generally pretty fair. This says, The Boys crossed a line and it wasn't hilarious at all. The Boys has always been a show determined to shock and gross out its audience. So it's no wonder they kept pushing the proverbial envelope. I'm no prude, but I'm often plenty grossed out by this show, though in the past that's mostly been a good kind. It's been funny, and for the most part, early on the series, Starlight, Erin Moriarty, who destroyed her face, in my opinion, has a bad thing happen to her by a superhero, the Deep. The scene was deeply disturbing, and it was supposed to be. Essentially, when a man does this kind of thing to a woman, it's bad. When it happens to a man, it's funny. It was a tough scene, but it's here for a reason. Starlight got our first glimpse on how terrible the Seven truly were, though not the last. Soon she'd realize that even the Golden Boy, Homelander, was a villain. In this week's episode, The Boys, however, things are taken way too far, not in a good way. There's shock value, and then there's shock value. Season 4, Episode 6, titled Dirty Business, is only shocking in its lack of empathy for men who have had terrible things happen to them. It's odd because last week was the first time this season I thought genuinely to myself, this is finally getting good. The episode had a lot to love, from flying soup sheep to hilarious parody of Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe. And of course, the call out, get woke, get yoked, is kind of one of the funniest and most absurd things the show has done. And the ridiculous, quote, woke product placement that is inside the episode is classic The Boys. So they went out and said, hey, ha, 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 we're going to acknowledge that people say we got woke. Well, so you acknowledge that you are listening to the criticism and, you're getting butthurt about it. It all came crashing down in Episode 6 when Huey, Jack Quaid, learns the saying, you never meet your heroes the hard way, the same way Starlight did back in Season 1. This time, however, when it happened, it's tackled with all the nuance of a freight train crashing into a brick wall, because it's happening to a man. My colleague Paul Tassi already detailed why this scene is so messed up, so I'll just direct you to his synopsis and critique. I want to talk about the authorial intent, which makes all so much worse. As far as I could tell, watching the scene and its aftermath, The Boys was playing Huey suffering for laughs. I was a bit mollified by his emotional breakdown at the fact, but it turns out I was all wrong. Showrunner Eric Kripke called the scene hilarious in an interview with Variety. Again, terrible things are happening to this guy, and he thought it was hilarious. The interviewer asked the following question, which is one I would have asked too. let's talk about the Tech Knight dungeon part. Where did this idea come from, and why bring Huey into the situation now, kicking him when he's down, having him essayed by a childhood hero after his dad just passed away? Kripke's reply in full reads, well, that's a dark way to look at it. We view it as hilarious. Obviously, Tech Knight is our version of Batman, and we wanted to really play around with that trope. Batman's fascist underpinnings as a really wealthy dude who hunts poor people and then profits off their incarceration. So that was one. Tech Knight was already set up to be a freak, so we were halfway there. I mean, what in the heck is wrong with these people? Kink tickled? I'm sorry, that wasn't kink. This was entirely non-consensual. The fact that the show's creator views it as hilarious and waves it off as some sort of funny hookup dungeon scene is more disturbing than the scene itself. When asked if there was ever a time that Amazon said that he was taking things too far, Kripke adds, I love that it's such a perfect setup that he doesn't even know his own safe word. It's just like a beautiful comedy setup that he's trying to find it the whole time. Not knowing your own safe word is just about the farthest thing from funny that I can think of. I'm absolutely baffled that someone in charge of a major television series could be this tone deaf. If this stuff was happening to a woman, it wouldn't be funny, right? These people wouldn't say it's funny. This wasn't just shock value as far as I'm concerned. It's more like, and more than Starlight's situation, but it's bizarre to see how Kripke views it as just some fun segment, rather than something that it should be taken very, very seriously. Contrast his comments with what he said about Starlight's scene. I wanted to get it right. I had a lot of conversations with a lot of women, some of which were very painful. So he didn't care when it happened to the man, but he was for laughs. Imagine if he had said the Starlight scene was, quote, hilarious and waved it off the same way that he does with Huey's horrific scene. There's a lot of stigma around male victims, and rather than tackling that in a serious manner, The Boys just amplifies that stigma. It's hypocritical and more than a little revolting. I'd call it a shame, but that's not quite strong enough. The Boys currently sitting at 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. Twitter is full of people pointing this out. The Boys showrunner, Huey's sticky Tech Knight encounter, that Zendaya reference, and Firecracker's big-hearted gift to Homelander. Let's see how this, that's a dark way to look at it. How else are you supposed to look at it? You see, a lot of people in the comments pointing out, man, for such a woke show, they're really having a hard time acknowledging things like this happening to men. I'm trying to stay a loyal fan, but I can't with this one. It's a bad trope on the show. And I used to be hardcore left. Now I'm just down the middle moderate. So you're scaring off your own woke audience because these people are just degenerate. Obviously this clip of where Homelander enjoys the chest milk of a devoted fan was also what Amazon Prime thought was going to be really good. I'm not going to show that video because it's gross and it's pathetic and it's degenerate. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Get woke, get yoked, as they say. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you follow or subscribe down below. If you made it this far and you're following on Rumble, make sure you follow the Publica on Rumble. Definitely trying to grow that channel out. Our news agency, we've been around for over a year now. Expect new videos flowing there, well, immediately. We'll talk to you again real soon.